news about Tom Cruise that rocked the very foundation of Hollywood. But first, Republican rumblings about Supreme Court nominee Harriet Miers. A growing number of conservatives are expressing concern and in some cases outrage over the president's pick to succeed Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. My next guest knows Miers personally and is defending her. Catherine Cryer is the host of Court TV's Catherine Cryer Live. She's also the author of Contempt, How the Right is Wronging American Justice. She joins us now live from New York. Catherine, thanks a lot for coming on.
Hey, Tucker, but quick qualification. I'm here to comment on Harriet. I don't know that I would put myself in a defender or necessarily detractor category.
Well, excellent. Okay, good. Well, tell us from what you know about her and from what you know of her, why do you think the president chose her?
Political. And I truly mean this. I knew Harriet for years, particularly during the 80s when I was on the bench there. She was president of the Dallas Bar. This is a very intelligent woman. This is a woman of tremendous integrity, at least during that time period, known as being very apolitical. I've heard some of the complaints that she didn't have strong stands on things. She took strong stands, but things that would please a lot of people, more women and minorities in the Bar Association, plenty of pro bono work, more help for the poor, this kind of thing. But in terms of legal writings or political stands that would tell us something about the issues before the Supreme Court, that was never known to be something in Harriet's forte.
Now, you just wrote a book on conservatives and the law, so presumably you can recognize a right-winger when you see one. Is she one?
I basically was complaining about an ultra-right agenda, not just traditional conservatives. Well, I think the issues, I wish people would talk about more than the abortion or gay rights issue in this country. There's a lot more to talk about. But certainly Nathan Hecht, her longtime companion, which is a Supreme Court justice in Texas, is very, very conservative. And he's come out and been very outspoken in her favor, talking about how she went from pro-choice to born again to very anti-abortion. And he's trying to, I think, signal the right that she's in the right place on this issue. But that doesn't tell you at all what she would do as a judge once those duties settled upon her shoulders.
No, it actually, and I think some people are losing sight of the fact that it actually means very little. Most people, when asked they're against abortion, great. It doesn't tell you anything about how she feels about Roe versus Wade. Do you have any sense how she feels about Roe versus Wade?
I really don't. And we've had one comment from a woman who worked for her during the city council campaign when she explained to her why she'd made the conversion and change. But this doesn't say what, as a judge, once she, as you said, reviewing prior rulings, understanding case precedent, trying to determine whether or not modifications could be made or overturning of the case, doesn't tell us anything about what she would do. And I'm a bit disconcerted, not about Harriet, but that the president would turn to what seems to be a very overt political choice to try to basically appease the right and the left without necessarily regard for the position he's filling.
Well, he has done neither, of course. He's infuriated the right, and the left is by definition nonplussed by everything he does. What do you think of her qualifications, though? A lot has been made of the fact that she's never been on the bench, unlike you, for example. Do you think she's qualified to be a Supreme Court justice?
Well, our first Chief Justice, the most famous justice in the United States, studied law for about 4 months before he then served for 30 years and made enormous precedent.
Is she intellectually impressive enough? When you talk to Harriet Miers, something I've never done, do you come away thinking, boy, that woman's just got an electric intelligence?
Those aren't the kinds of conversations I ever had with her nor heard her have. The conversations were administrative, organizational, running the Bar Association, what sort of endeavors and missions should the bar be engaged in. I understand she was a very good corporate litigation attorney representing big business, but that leaves me in a vacuum after knowing her for 10 years. Certainly, I think leaves most people who've known her a bit in a vacuum. I actually have gotten on the phone and called people from the far left and the far right, and they really admire her.
Yes, I've heard the same thing.
Yeah, they think she would pragmatically go in and try to do the right thing.
Well, let me ask the same question a different way then.
Okay.
When you first learned that Harriet Miers was the president's pick for this seat, what was your initial gut reaction to it? Let's be honest.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, okay. So it's not, I mean, the picture you seem to be painting, correct me if I'm wrong, is a very decent person. This is a capable person. This is not an incredibly memorable legal mind.
This is a very smart person who has never been put in a situation where a judge or called upon to decide great constitutional questions or even argue them that I'm aware of. Doesn't mean she doesn't have the capability. It's just never been called upon in public display.
All right. Well, it may be now. Catherine Cryer of Court TV, author of Contempt, sure to be climbing up the list again. Catherine Cryer, thanks. Let's welcome our good friend from Air America Radio, Rachel Maddow. Rachel.
Hi, Tucker.
I read the most interesting thing today I've read in a long time, and I never pull out documents.
Was it on my blog?
It was not on your blog.
That's a shame.
I was busy. Believe it or not, it's a United Press International UPI story from July of 1981. Okay.
I was 8.
Yes.
Yeah.
It describes the reaction from the right, from conservatives, particularly from evangelicals, to President Reagan's announcement that he was going to nominate another woman, Sandra Day O'Connor, to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
They were outraged. Many leaders of the conservative religious right blasted President Reagan's choice of Mrs. O'Connor because they contend she's in favor of abortion. Jerry Falwell was against it, right? Mm-hmm. Here's what the White House did in 1981. They sent background messages to these religious leaders that, hey, actually, Sandra Day O'Connor's one of us. Ed Meese told this preacher, quote, Sandra Day O'Connor thinks abortion is abhorrent. She's not in favor of it. She agrees with the president on abortion. She's very conservative. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
All off the record, all back channels.
All off the record.
Yeah.
They made it in the UPI wire copy, but yes, exactly right. And in the end, of course, we have Roe versus Wade to this day, partly because of Sandra Day O'Connor, who in fact supported the legal right to abortion in the end.
Well, it's interesting because you and I obviously have totally opposite positions on abortion. Most of our politics are totally opposite. But regardless of politics, you and I are both insulted by the idea that we're just supposed to be enthusiastic about this woman being on the Supreme Court and support her nomination because Bush says so, because we get these private assurances. We're not allowed to get anything on the record. She's not going to answer any questions. None of her papers get released. Just get in line. Bush says she's going to be fine. Get in line.
But you have heard over the past 2 days a lot of conservatives and some evangelicals, James Dobson, for instance, the head of the Christian Coalition, come out and say that they're satisfied because they have heard from the White House, credibly, that she opposes abortion.
Yeah.
But that's not the question. The question is not whether you oppose abortion. The question is how you feel about legal abortion as enshrined in Roe versus Wade, the 1973 decision. Should it be overturned, or is it the law of the land and settled? That's the question.
I mean, there is a legitimate debate about whether you can ask a judge, how will you rule on X,
Yes.
right? Because you're not hearing the case right there. You're just answering a question. You don't want to prejudge the case. I understand that. But why is it that we're not allowed to know anything that she's ever written? Presumably the issue of abortion rights, privacy, choice has come up when she's been 6 years in the White House.
Right, but it's not clear, as she was most of those years, of course, as staff secretary, who's basically the person in charge of managing paper flow. Right. It's an important job. It's not clear we'd know her opinions from seeing that paper. Here's, I think, something that's going to happen.
Okay.
She will not go all the way forward.
Really? You think she won't
I
be
don't
confirmed?
believe that. No, I think she will, in the end, withdraw her nomination. This is just completely a guess, but I think she's going to get a reception on Capitol Hill that is hostile from some conservatives, and I just don't see her being seated. I mean, it's a wild guess at this point.
I think that that's optimistic about how far conservatives are willing to go to oppose Bush. I think that you're right that conservatives should oppose Bush on spending and on some of the social conservative issues that you're raising here, but I think that some of the right will be disloyal on this and will be willing to do that, but most of the Republican Party too spineless to do it, and Democrats' opposition won't be enough to stop her.
Can I just bring up one very quick thing about Harriet Miers? You saw this column today in the New York Times by Maureen Dowd in which she points out that Harriet Miers is known as Harry, and she likes to clear brush, right? And the implication, I thought, behind all this is maybe Harriet Miers is gay. Well, we checked all these left-wing blog sites, and lo and behold, Daily Kos and all these other liberal blogs are saying out loud she's gay. What do you make of the fact? Are you hearing this, A? And B, what do you make of the fact of liberals essentially criticizing her for potentially being a lesbian? And why are they bringing this up in the first place?
Well, nobody would be criticizing her for being a lesbian. People would be criticizing her for being closeted. And for the Bush administration for being anti-gay rights and then supporting
But talk about
closeted
nobody's
gay people.
business, though, no?
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily think she's gay. I don't know. There's a lot of people who are said to be gay in Republican circles, and I don't know if they are until they say so. I think that closeted people are sad sacks, and they ought to be judged for being closeted. I don't know whether or not she is. It is, I mean, Roberts was not married till he was in his 40s. Miers, she's now 60, was not married. Some of these questions, it's like, well, this is unusual for this demographic, and so maybe it means that there's a question about their sexuality. But For me, the question is if they're living a lie, if they're closeted, yeah, that makes them a reprehensible
I just think that's
person,
going too far. I'm obviously not endorsing her nomination. I have strong reservations about it. I don't think she's going to make it to the court, but I think her personal life totally outrageous.
I also think, though, that Maureen Dowd's column was about the fact that Bush surrounds himself with sycophants, with people who are just yes men and yes women in particular, and she thinks that Harriet Myers is a yes woman.
Here's a newsflash, though. All politicians do that.
Yeah, but Bush needed to find somebody who was going to tell him to pay attention to the other side of the debate on weapons in Iraq, and he didn't, and he promoted Condoleezza Rice, and that's an
Well, here's a story that we just have to get in because it is breaking news. There's a report tonight from ABC News that there was in fact a spy in the Bush White House.
Oh, yeah.
A former Marine, a Filipino man who has now apparently been arrested, was arrested September 10th by the FBI in New Jersey for passing some sort of classified information to a political party in the Philippines. I just don't think this is going to hurt the Bush White House for a couple of reasons. One, he was hired during the Clinton years. Two, on the front page of the ABC website, there's a picture of him standing with Al Gore. And three, it doesn't appear to have hurt national security in any way.
Well, it appears to have hurt the Philippines' national security. I mean, American documents that are considered to be sensitive in terms of American national security are now being published all over the Philippines because, allegedly, of the stuff that this guy took from FBI computer files. And the thing that's embarrassing about this is that it was while he looks like he was hired in '99. We know that he worked for Gore and for Cheney. He says he also worked for Condoleezza Rice and for Clinton. And what he did was not exactly cloak and dagger. He used his Hotmail and his Yahoo account to attach classified documents and email them to the deposed president of the Philippines. I mean, it's not the kind of thing he should have gotten away with.
It is pretty unbelievable. I completely agree with that. And we should point out, for the sake of accuracy, he was also the regional coordinator for Toys for Tots in the Philadelphia area a couple of years ago.
That is an outrage. I always
really
was suspicious about that Toys for Tots.
Insult to injury, really. You can defile the U.S. government, but Toys for Tots, that's just wrong. Rachel Maddow, thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.
Still to come, reports that the bird flu could kill 1 billion people worldwide and turn major cities into ghost towns. That's what they're saying. But is this talk about a possible pandemic premature? One doctor gives us his opinion. And later, should the government use your money to arm citizens so they can arrest illegal immigrants at the border? One congressman says absolutely right. They ought to do it now. That's next on The Situation.
At Florida's Natural, we're a small co-op of growers who own the land, the trees, and the company. So our premium orange juice is made just from our fresh oranges, not from concentrate. Florida's Natural. It's as close to the grove as you can get.
Lots of Wi-Fi users work in coffee shops, which aren't always the best places to work. Wouldn't it be great to work wherever you wanted instead of only in hotspots? Now you can with Verizon Wireless Broadband Access. Wi-Fi only works in limited locations, while Broadband Access is the nation's largest high-speed wireless broadband network and is expanding coast to coast. Now get unlimited access at a great price, so you won't get stuck in a not-so-hot spot. Verizon Wireless, we never stop working for you.
Coming up, life in the fast lane is only a few dollars away. And what government agency would fire a team that helped rescue 400 people after Hurricane Katrina? Why, FEMA, of course. We'll tell you what's behind that absurd decision next.
Free time to make up for billable time. Hyatt Gold Passport's faster free nights. Every 2 stays earns you a free night at Hyatt Hotels and Resorts worldwide when you pay through MasterCard now through November 30th.
If you're over 50 and take calcium, you may be cheating your bones if you don't get enough vitamin D. Yet Tums has none. Caltrate Chewables has D to help optimize calcium absorption. Get more with great tasting fruit flavored Caltrate Chewables.